Hi, you watching your favorite YouTube channel, Learning Digital. Here we learn digital world things, so subscribe this channel for more digital world videos. Welcome. In this task, we will learn how to do some data mining using the if function. The idea behind data mining is that you take the data you already have and you create new or additional data from it. There are different functions and analysis that you can perform as data mining, but one common function that is used is the if function. When using the if function, what we are doing is asking a question about the data and then we get two responses depending on whether the answer would be true or false for the question. Before we get into an example, let's remove first the filter we had applied from the previous task so that we show all the sales. We'll go to the sales representative column and then click on filter and select all to show all the sales again. Let's see how we would use the if function with an example which will be easier to understand. Let's say that when an order has 20 chairs or more, the client receives a 5% wholesale discount. We first want to figure out which sales had 20 chairs or more to see if we need to apply the discount to the sale or not. In our table, we are going to add a new column which we will call it discount, and we could do this to the right of the total column. In column M, we will write as a header discount, and after pressing enter, Excel automatically recognizes that we are adding an additional column to our table. We can make this column a little wider, and so in this column, we are going to have an N for no if the sale doesn't have the wholesale discount because there were fewer than 20 chairs, or a Y for yes for sales that had more than 20 chairs and will have the wholesale discount. We are going to do this with the if function. In cell M5, we are going to start with our if function. As with every function, we start with an equal sign and then we'll type if, and here you'll see the list of different if functions that Excel has. We are just going to use the regular if function, and here a little trick is that we could click on or type tab and Excel will open up the parentheses for our function and will list what we need to include inside the parentheses. We have the logical test, which is the question that we are answering, which is if the sale had more than 20 chairs or 20 chairs or more, then what value we want to have as a response if this was true, which in our case is a Y for yes, and the value if the condition is false, which in this case is an N for no. Let's write our function so we have that what we are testing is if cell J5 is equal more than or equal to 20. We click on cell J5, then we are asking if it's greater than or equal to 20. Then we want a Y as a response for the true condition, and since we are asking for a text response, we need to use quotations, so Y within quotations and then comma N if this is false, and then we would close the parentheses and we'll press enter and we'll see what we get. So you could see that after writing the equation, it's auto-filled the remaining cells of the table, and let's check if the equation works. In the first case we have an N because the number of chairs sold in that first cell was 15, which is less than 20, but then in the second one we have a Y because there were 22 chairs sold, which is greater than or equal to 20, so it did work. Great. Well, to make it easier to see, we could maybe align the text in the middle of the cell, so let's highlight the whole M column and then we can align our text in the center so that we could see the N and the Y, and now with this we know which cells would have the wholesale discount and which cells don't, and we could even filter the data to show only the cells with the discount if we wanted to. Now let's continue with this example to practice this a little more. Instead of listing the cells that have the discount and which ones don't, let's say that we actually want to calculate the final price for the cell applying the discount only to the sales that had 20 or more chairs. We could also do this with the if function. We are going to create a new column on column N, so I'm going to drag this a little to the right and we are going to name this new column final price, for example. We'll click enter and it'll again recognize that it's a new column of our table, and to use the if function we are going to start like we did last time, so equals if, press tab to open the parentheses, and in our case the logical function is the same as we previously had where we are asking if J5 is greater than or equal to 20. But now the response is a little more complex, because if this is true we want to apply the discount to the total price that we calculated, and for sales with 20 or more chairs the final price is going to be 95% of this initial total that we calculated, which would be applying that 5% discount, so 100 minus 5 gives us 95. So to do that, 95% as a decimal is 0.95, and we are going to multiply that, so we use an asterisk and then multiply it by that total that we had previously calculated. So our response, if true, it would be 0. 95 times L5, but if it's false we don't want to apply the discount, so we'll write comma, and then for false we would just have cell L5 because we don't want to have a discount applied to it, and then we'll close the parentheses and press enter, and it should auto-populate the remaining cells of the column, and we could now check this. So for all of the sales that didn't have a discount the final price should be the same as the total, so we could see that for our first sale, but for the second sale which did have the discount, the final price you could see that it's a little lower than our initial total, meaning that 5% discount has been applied. Now we could format this column by highlighting the total column and stating that we have currency in this one, and now we could see that it's changed to US dollars, and since they're pretty big numbers we can remove the zeros after the decimal by clicking on the decrease decimal icon 2 times, and now we have the format for our new column with the final price.